Divine Couples. Your host, Naomi Slater, will awaken your passion, deepen your intimacy, and invite healing into your relationships, working towards accessing higher levels of consciousness in all areas of your life. Come with us on this journey to explore and experience your fullest potential.
You are listening to Society Bites Radio, social interaction for the mind and soul. Thanks for joining us. I am your host, Naomi Slater, and you have tuned in to Divine Couples, adding intimacy, passion, and healing to your lives. Deva Presence created Orgasmic Heart after a decade of unraveling the means to an orgasmic life. His focus on healthy relationships and healthy lifestyle has led him to discover conscious sexuality as a primary element. He has since wrote several books on the subject and released many online courses to further support the growth of lovers worldwide. Deva, it's so great to have you on the show.
Wow, yes. Thank you so much for the lovely introduction, and very happy to be participating in this. How are you doing, Naomi?
I'm great, thank you. It's my pleasure to have you. So, Deva, can you tell us how you found sacred sexuality?
Yes, sacred sexuality kind of found me. I was with a girlfriend at the time, and she wanted to connect with a gentleman. We were kind of like not boyfriend, girlfriend yet, and she wanted to connect with a guy. And the guy said to her, "Hey, you can do anything you like to me sexually, and I will not ejaculate." And she was very intrigued by this, and she told me about this, and my insecurities went through the roof.
Yeah.
Because I all of a sudden felt like majorly not good enough and not able to provide for her something that was interesting to her. And so that led me on the journey of facing these insecurities and really trying to unravel, well, what does it mean to actually become a multi-orgasmic man who can actually last longer in the bedroom and provide for a beautiful experience for my lover. And so I went on that mission for about 10 years, and it took a long time to finally find out certain keys that actually work for me and my body so that the lovemaking can actually be something spectacular. Yeah, and lo and behold, it's not just changing the lovemaking, but it's really changing my outlook on life entirely. And so much came out of actually looking into the sexuality. And so, yeah, years of like working with people in relationships and their challenges emotionally was great. But when I got into the sexuality part, I realized, whoa, there's a big key here. And this is really important for transformation.
You are so brave, Deva, for sharing that, because I think that there are so many men that struggle with that. But they don't really have the courage or the skills to really dive deep into understanding sacred sexuality. And I really commend you for sharing your own personal experience with that, because I think it gives other people the courage really to explore and discover these things.
Yeah, definitely it does, because, yeah, a lot of people are not talking about sex so directly. It's a bit more nuanced, and it's filled with a lot of innuendos that kind of makes sex seem like something that's like dirty and like, you know, to be treated or exploited in such a way for the means of just pleasure only, and or for the means of like trying to get what you want. So either it's like, I'm going to get the girl or I'm going to get the guy by using sexuality. And you know, it can go so much further when we bring consciousness to the act, and which allows for us to see deeper within ourselves and start focusing on self-love. And so this journey for me has been a lot about loving and accepting myself, and in that, seeing things quite dramatically shift in my relationships to my partner, as well as my relationships to like how I go about business, and even how I go about like, you know, teaching people now, is because I'm like, hey, I've been through where you were, and I've moved through that by accepting myself more than anything else. And so when I'm working with people and bringing them through intense parts of their life, a lot of it is just about like, hey, stop judging yourself and lean into the beautiful qualities that you are.
Oh, I love that. So you said briefly you've been traveling. I know that you've been traveling for the past 10 years of your life. Can you tell us what that's been like?
Well, for me, it's been like a beautiful realization, and specifically to sexuality, a beautiful realization about what we've been missing. And I don't think I would have been able to like tap into certain qualities of my life without actually seeing the world and the way people live and the way people see life through this kind of like liberated lens. Um, when I first initially started traveling, there was a lot of fear that was given to me. Oh, don't go. It's so dangerous. You have to be so careful. Don't go by yourself. I traveled 10 years by myself. And in that, yeah, I've had to face my own fears, which weren't that much. It was more like projected fears from others.
Mm-hmm.
And then seeing actually that all the synchronicities that came up in the travels, meeting the right people at the right time, and something about leaving your home or leaving your place of comfort and like supposed safeties and going out into the dangerous world, so to speak. You get the opportunity to embrace and to face the unnecessary insecurities that are inside.
Yeah.
And one of those was like the way that I engaged with my lovers. And so I met quite a few people on those travels where it's like, hey, this is the time that we have together. You know, we'll be here 2 weeks and that's it. And so that somehow created these like incredible explorations with lovemaking and with connecting that were very valuable to me and to my experience of growing into a place of like liberating love, I would say, more than anything.
That is so interesting. Wow.
Yeah.
So maybe you can talk a bit about the connection between sex and spirit, because I know that a lot of people, they kind of have an inkling that they're connected, but it's still kind of not so clear what the connection is. So if you could enlighten us, that would be great.
I would certainly say I would want to enlighten the spiritual bypassing aspect of that first, because what I have found, and it's not even like that necessarily people do this consciously, but there are shadowy aspects of our sexuality that can come through and use the terms of tantra and spirituality as a means to get their needs met sexually, and are kind of, in a sense, washing it over as a spiritual act. Oh, and like
Yeah, there's
maybe
a
doing a
whole lot
bow
of that happening.
doing a bow and a namaste at the end, and then all of a sudden that's supposed to be like a spiritual act or something like this.
Right.
And so
Right.
and so it's very important that when mixing the term of sexuality and spirituality, it's best to really explore that with someone that is your primary partner for, say, a certain period of time, and there's been a lot of consensual agreement and an actual loving relationship that's already established. And within that, you can say, hey, let's take this to the next level. And those feel like a very safe engagement. If you're like just meeting someone and you don't even know if you like them, and they're like, hey, let's do this kind of spiritual thing called tantra, and then you're getting down sexually, that can really cause some traumas. And I've seen it time and time again. So that can actually be very traumatic, because they're assuming that the act is somehow spiritual and therefore it's okay to do it. Let's totally like address that up front. And so, yes.
Right. And then they end up doing things that they actually didn't really want to do.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So all of that aside, let's say you are in a loving relationship and you're committed and you're wanting to take that to the next level and saying, hey, why not, make this experience, a practice or a ritual that is focused on beyond just genital pleasure. And so when we're talking about spirituality connected to sexuality, we are going beyond the normal act of oh, I feel aroused. Do you feel aroused? Yes. Okay. Shall we get together and plug in, so to speak, and like move around a little bit until some kind of like ecstaticness happens in the end? That's normally how we treat it, and it's used for
Right.
like, relaxation. It's used for maybe like bonding emotionally. But in terms of it becoming something spiritual, if we're now looking at how am I using breath, prana, and syncopating our breath together or in opposite respects, and choosing to focus on the energy inside and circulating that life force between us, for example, or focusing on chakras and meditating and using the sexual act as a form of ritual and meditation that can bring these profound illuminating experiences that can maybe create revelation in one's life, that can maybe create a deep emotional release, that can create something beyond just a pleasure experience. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so those
Yeah.
qualities in the act can be very beautiful, and it doesn't have to be in intercourse particularly. It can be literally just an act of devotion to one another through certain rituals that play out an experience that is, I guess, quote unquote, spiritual and illuminating one's life, and growing together in a deeper connection.
Oh, that's so beautiful. And I love the way that you make it so easy to practically, how do you really practice this without doing something that is not right for you, is going past your boundaries. And I think doing it with someone that you're in a relationship with, or somebody that you really trust, is an amazing way to make sure that there isn't some sort of spiritual bypass there. So that's, I think, great advice. You have developed an online course on Lingam massage. Could you tell us what that is?
Absolutely. Yes. And so, one of the wonderful ways of creating the connection spiritually is to actually focus on the sexual organs as a means to illuminate, to light up the pleasure without the goal of ejaculation or orgasm. So lingam is a term that's described as the pillar or wand of light. And our life force accumulates in the genitals, in the penis, so to speak. And when we are aroused and when we are erect, there is a source of energy that is there for the purpose of, for the usual purpose of wanting to produce light, yes? And so, yeah, we get together as a human species and can copulate and produce a child. And that's very beautiful and amazing. And it's a description of the power that we have as human beings. However, we can take that power and cultivate it and move it through the body in another direction. So instead of sending it out, the penis, we can actually sustain that pleasurable energy and desire that wants to release and bring it into the body. And that can create some very profound experiences. I remember my first, not first, but I'd say one lingam massage I had with a lover, where it brought on a massive release emotionally. And I started to, just immediately yell and scream, and tears were flowing out of my eyes. And then I went into a complete no mind, no breath space for like several minutes, like breathing and completely out of mind. And in that process, it was like, it wasn't something that you would even consider to be a part of a massage that deals with genitals. People think of the erotic aspects of it. Like, oh, okay, yeah, you're going to feel a lot of pleasure and maybe you'll be multi-orgasmic. But this was like very profound, and it wasn't about pleasure. Yeah. I've also had experiences where there was no touch to my genitals at all, and I experienced a full-blown orgasm, like a very intense orgasm. There was no touch to my penis whatsoever. And that was also very